One of the most delightfully surprising truths that I've encountered about career as I've embarked on mine is that you meet people that become your fellow travelers that are like spirits that you remain connected with, though you manifest in different forms. Our next guest is somebody that I met very, very early in my career when I was at a magazine and he was leading an innovation team at an agency. And we have both shapeshifted multiple times through different jobs and through different paradigms in culture and tech, media, and advertising. And it's always been a delight to walk into a room and see his face in a new location with a new story, a new scene, and find some comfort of the familiarity of this person that I know has been hopping through the contexts parallel to the same kind of journey that I've been taking. And I suspect that this is something that everybody encounters in their career in some way, shape, or form. And it's really what's at the truth of why your goodness to each other matters, because you have relationships that form, that endure beyond whatever it is that defines your job or the task at hand. And in the final calculus, I think it's these relationships that end up meaning the most. So I was really thrilled to sit down with our next guest, Chris Denson. When I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm like trying to do this like podcast thing. And he was game to meet up in a park, put some microphones in front of us, and have a conversation like we have had in many ways and many times. But to just drop into what's going on right now in this moment of change that we're all feeling, and how can we reflect on the human element of what it is to pursue our careers? Which way is north? Okay, well, first things first. How do you want to be referred to in our conversation?
It's Chris. It's Chris Denson. Not first and last name. What you would like? You abandoned job title. So what would you? What have you thought about?
What have I thought? Well, I mean, the idea is like create a context in this moment. We've known each other in a lot of different contexts, a lot of different job titles, right? So we've had this opportunity to kind of like circle around the other human and figure out what really it is at the core.
Yeah.
I like that core in the Chris Denson that I know. And so what is the fastest way that the listeners can find their way to that core by name and or title?
I'd say, innovation coach. Let's start there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Innovation coach.
Even though I hate the word coach, but that's okay.
Why?
I don't hate it. I'm just a big fan of vocabulary. And vocabulary that tells a different story than the norm.
Yeah.
And I think coaching has stigma around it. So normally I say I have a personal advisory business.
Right. There's a difference between a coach and an advisor, right? In terms of your role in the game that they're playing.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of emotional intelligence that I end up working with people through.
Yeah.
In addition to like how to be more innovative or run a team or see a vision through or find ways as a collective. So because I have like the trauma training and the transformational leadership training and the psychedelic facilitation training, like just understand how humans can be misguided in some instances, and helping them recognize those and how they relate to whatever it is, the vision that they are creating.
Okay,
so it becomes a personal advisor specifically for folks who are doing uncommon things.
So I'm inferring here that the mashup coach advisor represents the human side, innovation represents the business side?
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell me more about that word innovation.
Good question. Only because I've always said it's like a ubiquitous term, right? I hosted a series and it was called Innovation Crush and did 200 plus episodes, and each one of them I would ask people, I go, complete this phrase for me. Innovation to me is, and I will tell you, there was never a repeat answer.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I've always looked at innovation as an operating system.
Okay.
Right?
This is an interesting idea.
We can look at the outcome and go like, oh, that's an innovative pair of glasses that Google made or that Ray-Ban has done with Meta, right? But, or we can say this AI tool is innovative, et cetera, et cetera. This is normally how we speak of it. But it's usually the process and the thinking and what gears were turning in the machine and how well tuned were those gears as they were building the thing.
Yeah.
How free flowing was your brainstorming space? How, how much angst or freedom did people feel going into the assignment? Like, how did you carve out time and time block to make space for this invention? How did you hire people who have uncommon skill sets?
Okay.
That, so like there's these other components of the innovation process that end in best case some result of like uncommon success.
So that's the static thing that you've built, your processes, your mind, your operating system, in the domain of innovation, which itself is always on the frontier of constant change.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right? I think it's a moving target, right? You're never quite done. There's always a next level to get to or new problem to solve. If you remain aware to, and open to opportunities and kind of lose a bit of rigidity around certain parts of the mission, right? I find like a lot of the folks I work with, it's like, I want to build a thing like this that looks like this, or I want this division of my company to operate in this way. And I go, okay, cool. Also, let's look at half a dozen to 20 other different ways that same mission can be accomplished.
Yeah.
More efficiently, less kind of churn and turmoil within yourself and the team. So it's just really like, I want people to be able to have as much expansive thinking as they can, no matter how smart you are.
Yeah.
One of my favorite anecdotes, I interviewed this guy years ago named Andy Walsh, who used to run the Red Bull Human Performance Laboratory. And he would do all these like crazy experiments on athletes and executives. And he would turn off parts of the brain using a device that signaled fatigue because he wanted to know how much of fatigue was mental versus physical.
And people signed up for this.
People signed up, but he was also an Olympic coach before he went to Red Bull.
So
and he also trained Felix Baumgartner for the space jump.
Before the jump.
Right,
yeah.
So it was his physical trainer, his mental trainer, et cetera, et cetera. And I go, if you're pushing all these people to the apex of their performance and people like you're the mountaintop and then they're like climbing up the pole that you planted on the mountaintop, I was like, who's pushing you to your next low? And he paused and like just kind of looked down and took a deep breath and was like, I don't know. That's something I've been trying to figure out.
Okay.
Right, so that's a good mystery to solve, right? This is where I get to be like Shaggy and Scooby-Doo. Like, ooh, let's figure that out. That's a fun assignment, or like the more obscure, the better, right?
Every case is different.
Yeah.
Working with the mystery. All right. Well, then I would say that positions you to have a really interesting perspective on that first question that we ask here. If you're ready to jump into the questions.
I think I'm ready.
Okay, so that first question. What is in front of you? I'll let you just answer it as is first and foremost.
What is in front of me? It's funny. It's like there's a suite of tools and products and services that I envision that will help me expand and affect more change in other individuals. When I look at like the shifts that are happening in society, some people may use a different word or different phrasing, right? Like, there are some challenges. Some of us see challenges. Again, not all. Some people are completely on board with things that are happening in our world. And I go, as an individual, a lot of times those things are overwhelming. But as an individual who is helping other individuals see a little bit more broadly their own missions, and I believe in this like ripple effect that I'm able to create. I want to continue creating ripples, and I struggle with what's in front of me in some ways because I've always operated in like, if I keep doing a good job and following my intuition and things that give me goosebumps, who knows where I'll end up, as opposed to having a 5-year plan.
Well, that's exactly it, what you just did right there. Sort of anchoring on the word shifts, which has some neutrality to it, but recognizing an adaptable mindset is the right mindset to take when you're taking an innovative approach to looking at the future, is that like one thing we know to be true is that things are changing. A lot of people have a lot of different feelings about that. And so as this innovator coach, like that's what I see in your command of language and choice of that word is just like, well, let's just like settle on the neutral energy so we can navigate from there what we want to explore.
There's always going to be something, in the business, right? We call it, there's pivots.
Yeah.
Some pivots you choose, some pivots you are forced to make, right? And some of them are like a lot more drastic than others, but either way it's going to happen in some way, shape, or form. And when, you feel bombarded by a number of different things or overwhelmed by what decisions should we make now. I mean, I have a client who laid off maybe like 10% of their staff and also lost $1 million in funding. And I'm like, all right, the mission remains the same. Let's practice some relentless optimism and also acknowledge the pain point of this all, Let's grieve. Let's do all the processes, because I think a lot of us just try to barrel through. And productivity, the kind of things that get in the way aren't always just like operational efficiency. Sometimes there are these emotional experiences that we're having where I just don't have the same enthusiasm today as I had yesterday, and I don't know how to think about this problem any differently than I thought about it Tuesday.
How often are leaders today willing to feel through things in that way that you described?
I don't think they recognize that is a part of the equation. So I like to find ways to tap into that, almost like a little magic trick, where suddenly, or I may just ask directly, you tell me like the stack of things that you're working on and working through, and then I'm assuming that the expected response from me is, all right, let's get into the tactics. But normally I go, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, right. That's very different than starting off and being like, do you want to talk about your feelings?
Yeah, exactly. And, a little bit of transparency process, like every session when I'm working with individuals, I go 3 wins for the week and 3 hurdles for the week.
Yeah.
Right. So that way I'm not saying what's emotionally taxing for you, what's come up for you. And I'm not a therapist. So like, I don't want to present in any way that feels like I have a different vocation. I have some understanding and I have like a lot of tools and practices I've incorporated in my own life, and I've seen work and some things I've picked up along the way that, I know that I don't believe in a cookie cutter method. So like what works for me doesn't always work for everybody else. But if I can say, hey, here's 5 different ways to approach this thing that you're trying to figure out. I use this one and it worked. There's what I got out of it, but other people have done this. Which one speaks to you? And then maybe we invent something on top of that. So I think it's finding these really subtle gateways. I think you're right. Like when the word shifts comes up, it removes a lot of the weight of what's happening. Because you're like, oh, yeah, I guess it is a shift.
So how much of the work from there is a matter of synthesizing different paths versus focusing on one path?
For most people, I think it becomes, especially if you're a high achiever, I think it's like there's a batch of distractions we all have.
Yeah.
Right? Especially for the CEO of this organization that I just mentioned earlier, for instance, he has this really amazing vision for what he wants to create next. So he already created like an entire document, wrote a book on it, but the demands of his day-to-day stuff are like preventing him from, the perception of preventing him from getting to this really an umbrella. Like let's say you're trying to solve, the fries problem at McDonald's, but then you're like, actually the whole potato industry is fucked, right? I want to work in the potato industry, but you keep getting called back into McDonald's every day.
Sure.
Right? That was a really bad metaphor, but
your
audience will get it.
It worked for me. Except now I want French fries, so.
Me too. So I refer to these as either distractions or micro distractions. I have another client, we were like working on something. She answers a phone call in the middle of our session, which is totally fine. But it was her personal trainer, and they didn't want anything. And we had been talking about like her developing her personal brand and what she's going to do with that. And I go, in order to focus on your personal brand, you have to really be focused on you and not be at the behest of every little thing that pops up. There's no reason that 20 minutes from now, you could have answered that call
Yeah.
or returned it.
Boundaries.
Right? Exactly. And especially if you're, in this case, this person's a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
A very high-powered lawyer. And it's like you're always at the behest of your clients.
Right, it's a service industry, you're always on.
Yes. So then when you want to turn the lens on servicing yourself,
Yeah.
it's hard to turn off the external ways of being. So it's like, I refer to this thing as breaking good habits. So
Okay.
we all like have gotten to whatever level of success or not because of some things we know how to do well.
I love this.
And then you go like, I don't need these tools anymore to do this, right? And you can say what got you here won't get you there. That's another way of saying it. And so the tools, resources, people, relationships, mindset, et cetera, to get out of those habits. Even the other CEO I mentioned, I go, you know, he's been asked to go to all these conferences. And you spend 2 weeks traveling. Now you're like, how are you ever going to get to this new thing that you're going to? I was like, maybe when those events call you, maybe you can service them in a different way.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't have to be you traveling. Maybe you write the opening whatever for the conference, or record a video, or create a program, you know, that goes in tandem with your registration. Like there's all sorts of ways you can do it. You don't have to like be on the ground running your mouth in front of X number of people.
What a good way to
in order to provide value.
get somebody out of a sense of being in a rut too.
1000%.
Yeah, because the work streams or the network, or you know, just the day-to-day that they already have can be rewired in a way that invigorates by having them respond to them differently.
One of my greatest joys is when somebody's like, I didn't think of it that way. Like I did. I mean, it's one of my tattoos. It's like change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will begin to change. And you know, most of us are looking so closely at our circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, and there's something like just burning in you to create, build, do, change, and like we can only see what's happening. And so yeah, it's like it's a great feeling to have people just discover different pathways, or the fact that other pathways exist.
And so you're speaking about this on an individual services level, and I've seen you do this on an organizational and on an industry level.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about what's different and what's the same when doing this kind of leadership.
Yeah.
You know, for a person versus an organization versus a community.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, if you, not to get too, I don't know, hoity-toity about it, but like, everything's an organism, right? It all has like different moving parts that make up the machine and how it works. From an organizational standpoint, it becomes, you know, taking a look at the cultural DNA and where are some common missteps. And then innovating on those things so that people feel enough freedom to be innovative. Whatever that means, again, innovation to me is, innovation to our organization means. And then it becomes, well, how do we even get to this? Maybe set up a council within the organization. Get 5 people to raise their hand. They're going to meet every other Thursday for 45 minutes and report back on like 5 headlines that they've seen in the news that they think the organization should be paying attention to. What we do from there, who knows? But like, oh, I have a friend that does or works at this company. So just like, if you can get the ball rolling with a small like group test, that's one way of doing it. There's also just, I mean, looking at leadership. How much of an example are they setting? How much freedom are they giving the teams to fail? I mean, the trauma course that I took was called Trauma of Money. And when we think about trauma of money, we think about individual spending, saving, et cetera, et cetera. But if you think about it from an organizational standpoint, like you can be the CFO and come from a home where, you know, money was scarce, and now you're running the budget from a scarcity mindset, and you're informing the CEO. The CEO is now panicking, and now he wants wants everybody else to like operate at this rate, or else we're doomed in 3 months, right?
Broad implications.
Yeah, and I came from the agency world. Like you live and die by the size and number of clients that you have.
Yeah.
Right? And if somebody reduces scope or they go away altogether, a team or an individual is lost, and now everybody's kind of shaking in their boots because we don't do a good job of communicating when a client goes away. When we win business, it's a town hall meeting, there's an email that goes out, congratulations to the pitch team, and Joe and Jane, you guys did a great job, thank you. We'll begin on March 13th, right? But when client Y goes away, and it's like...
Different tone.
Nobody, yeah.
How fascinating that work is a crucible for our core wounds.
Oh, I mean, that's a new-ish discovery for me. Like, I've always kind of seen, like, yes, we show up as our human selves in our vocations, but to see, I mean, one prompt I'll give, certain clients is like, what am I learning? Just like put it on a post-it note, put it on the computer, put it on your laptop, because you may just sat in a meeting on the next AI tool or some blockchain technology, whatever it might be. But then you're like, what am I learning? Means did I feel dumb in the room? What does that mean? Is my perceived value in like how much knowledge I'm bringing to the table, how much I know, and if I don't know something, do I feel less valuable?
Yeah.
Right. Like and those are real things. Like running a brainstorm session. One of the things I like to do, there's a couple of exercises I like to do to democratize creativity in the room. Because always those one or two people that have all the ideas, all the thoughts, and then there's a quiet person over in the corner who's not saying anything, probably double dutching their way into like participating. Then there's somebody like myself. One of my hangups used to be like, I wanted to have the best idea in the brainstorm, and not realizing like you're just there to participate.
Yeah.
If you say egg and I say tomato, you're like, oh, well, what if we made a sandwich, right? But like somebody wants to come in with like the whole meal game plan.
Right.
And be the one that's like, thank you, Will, you did a great job, right? You saved us again.
Yeah.
And, kind of like drop. So again, the organization has to create an environment where people feel safe enough to just say whatever thought comes. I used to say brainstorm should be safer than HR. Because it's the place you can like accidentally, I mean, I've heard crazy racist things in brainstorms. I've heard, just like off-putting thoughts. But that is part of like getting out the fluff, getting out the shaking up the shit. Yeah. And you need it, right? Like you need to get through the crappy parts. And sometimes those crappy parts, even like if you flip them, they might even become part of the gold that you end up creating.
Yeah. What am I learning? That's a good question. If I had that posted on my computer, I think I would have saved myself a lot of anger, because I think I have had a tendency to get mad when I'm learning, because I'm not as competent as I want to be in a particular area, and there are forces larger than me that are pushing me towards my incompetence, and then I get upset about it because I'm worried I'm going to be exposed.
Yep. And then let's add this to it. If you get exposed enough times, somebody's going to tell you you can't work here anymore.
Yeah,
if you can't work here anymore, how am I going to pay my bills?
Right.
If I can't pay my bills, I'm going to have to move out, and I have to move in with my parents, and I don't like my mom. Like we've gone, like
it gets deep fast.
Emotionally, we've gone down a whole chain of events, and we're like, oh, well, what am I learning?
Yeah.
Am I learning to like chill out? Am I learning? I have one client who's like, before we started working together, was like, I have a problem when an idea doesn't go my way, I shut down. And I was like, I can relate to that. Like, somebody bastardized your thoughts, and you're like, I know this is the best move for it, whatever. And I like, there's a lot of lessons to learn in that. There's a lot of like somatic tuning in. There's a lot of like reparenting of self. Did your parents like reward you for great grades and then treat you like shit if you got bad grades, or like give you a really good gung-ho, let's help you find a tutor, what's going on? Like, did they tune into you in a way that was supportive, or did you just feel like you were in trouble? So now here you are, 35, 40, feeling like you're in trouble again because you feel like you got something wrong or somebody corrected your work. It's really fascinating the different parts of us that show up in different stimuli in a work environment. I remember like when I first went to OMD and I ran innovation, that's where you and I met. Like I ran a team of 20 people, and first 4 or 5 months, my team would come in, we do these meetings, and it's just kind of like, we would always just checking for what's next, what's around the corner. For that period of time, it's like, hey, have you heard of this? I'm like, nope. Never heard of it. Have you heard of this technology?
Good job.
Nope. Have you heard of this event?
That's why
and I was
here.
like, what am I doing here? Like, but I'm also like, I'm the new executive in charge or whatever.
Right.
And so I had to give myself some wiggle room to be dumb.
Yeah.
Right. To feel dumb, and also like recalibrate what my value is. My value is now like around organizing the. 5 people are telling me all the new things that are coming. They all have different appetites and things that speak to them. It could be a new sneaker brand. It could be a new, like, I don't know, one guy used to teach like medical science at some institute in China. Like, but here we are working on stuff for Disney or Paramount, right? So, or CBS. And these transferable skills kind of mean that they're just coming at it from a different angle, right? And I have to like adjust and like make sure that their skills are seen and like polished, get all the dust off of it so that we're providing value. Eventually I caught up to like the daily shifts in culture, right? But that was my learning curve and my emotional learning curve as well as my like vocational learning curve.
Are you still scanning the horizon for what's emerging, what's coming these days?
I do. I mean, not in the same way, right? This is back when we used to do trend reports and we would write a book every quarter and, you know, so not looking.
That stuff is bigger than ever right now.
Oh, because there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much, but you know, and then there's also the singular focus in some ways on things like AI. But yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I have my newsletters. I have what my clients are working on. On occasion, I'll dip my toe into a project, depending on if I like. Again, am I moved by this? Do I get goosebumps by it? To even use your language, like my North Star recognition has changed. Right, where it's just like, oh, that looks cool. Let me jump into it. Hey, who do I talk to in here to get involved in this?
Right.
Now I'm like, is this giving me goosebumps? Like, do I have like a visceral attraction to this environment, this job, this task?
Yeah.
You know, and almost to like the hurting of my own pockets, right? Because like I can look at a bottom line financial value or bottom line resume value and still say no to something because I'm looking for a different stimuli and a different experience.
Yeah. It's interesting here. So I want to turn to the question of what's behind you, because we're talking about it, but we're talking about a time in your past when you were looking towards the future, right? So they're related to each other. Before we go in there, I mean, is there anything that you want to say about this moment right now, looking ahead? For a grander, you know, future? What's in front of us?
I'd like to say that I'm excited.
There are shifts.
There are shifts. And what I believe in is the spirit of human ingenuity.
Okay.
Like, yes, things are going away, things are changing, you know, there are like lives are being lost. I'm not dismissing the severity of certain things. I think at the same time, if you look at the history of industrial revolutions, right? The steam engine and what that did for people who were on horseback delivering things. And if you look at what the agricultural revolution changed and how like mass food was able to get to everyone, then what mass food has become now. Or you look at the technological, like all these things where like jobs have gone away, livelihoods have gone away, people lost their lives while building these things. And if you have like in some sort of opposing socio-political regime that is also changing things, somewhere in that somebody's like, yeah, but what about this? And each time we, as individuals and a collective society, find some new thing to do. So when AI comes on board at the same time as so many things are changing in America, it's like, my lofty theory is around this idea of the fifth industrial revolution just being ourselves, like finding ways to change ourselves. So as these things go away, you start to go like, what am I going to do next? How am I going to create value? How am I going to earn a living? What purpose? Why did this go away? You start asking these deep questions.
That's what I heard at the beginning when you were talking about innovation as an operating system. I was like, all these people are thinking about building AI agents. I'm like, this dude's been building Chris Denson.
Yeah. Because Chris Denson's going to survive, hopefully, like whatever comes along. There's going to be something after AI, right? Yeah. We don't even know what that is, right? There's going to be another COVID. There's going to be another Spanish flu. Like, we're just going to have all these things. Even with my kids, I'm like, more so than anything, I try to teach emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Can you survive? Because we all chose a career at some point in time, you know, as in college or high school, you're like, I'm going to do this. I mean, I have a degree in engineering. I worked as an engineer for a year.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So, but I also didn't have any sort of other than my gut, but like any sort of formal education or introduction to like the ups and downs that life will bring you. And if you can learn to live in the sweet spot and really zen out, which takes a lot of work for some of us, to know that that is the seesaw that we're on. And to like, how can I balance in the middle and be calm while balancing in the middle?
Let's explore that seesaw a little bit further. What's behind you?
Because I see, forward, saw, pass. See what I'm saying? See what I did? That's a bar.
That was the transition.
That's a bar.
Yeah, it was smooth. Maybe a bit of a saw.
What is behind me is what comes to mind is like the way I effort.
Oh.
The way, like, I speak a lot of examples. I created this men's event. We meet monthly. It's like for accomplishment and like revisiting masculinity in a modern era, what that means. I call it the Seek Easy. Good play on words, right, Will?
It is.
And I was like, no matter what, we're all seeking some form of ease.
Yeah.
Like, and ease can be translated into joy, happiness, relationship, you know, whatever your definition of like you think would be something that makes your life easier. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop your pace, your senses of urgency, your, you know, passion about a certain thing. It just means like, can I enter that standing in the middle of the seesaw? And so I think for me, what's behind me is like, my ambition coming through the, you know, the number of cold outreaches I'm doing and the sort of, everything has to equate to the next thing, and all that stuff served me well to a degree, right? Had I had a little bit more wisdom imbued, has anybody ever said imbued on your show?
First time.
Right. Imbued into into my like work experience, I think it would have been a lot different, you know. And I think I had I was at an event recently, and you know, it's an event I've been going to for like 10 years. Like and then they asked me to become a facilitator, and I was like, great. So I did that, and it happens a couple times a year. Shout out to Hatch. And I was talking to one of the guys. He was like, "Man, you seem different." This was like last year, and I was like, "Oh, what? Like how?" He's like, I don't know, like, you seem easier. I was like, what do you think I was like before? He's like, you were always smart and cool and blah, blah, blah. It just seemed like you were trying. And I will tell you, like, we were, where we were staying in tents.
Yeah.
And I went back to my tent, and I probably cried for like 5 or 10 minutes. Like, I just mourned that person that I was.
That's dynamic.
Right? And no change in the resume. Like, the awards were still there, you know, the relationships were still, the access, but it was just like, I didn't even realize that energy was that present.
Yeah.
That somebody I'd probably see twice a year.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, how did you know that?
And it's twofold, right? It's like there could be part of you that wants to know if you're still trying as hard now as you were then, and then there's a part of you that might be asking, like, why was I trying so hard then when I could have just relaxed the way I am now?
Yeah, I think when you start to go on this path of understanding, right, like you understanding who you are and why you are, and it's like I could point to some specific, you know, life moments or upbringings or things that have happened that challenged my sense of value.
Yeah.
And so, like, reconciling with those things. So I think there's different phases of understanding, right? There's the intellectual knowledge, right? I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm this way because that. But you're still kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you start to excavate and you get down to the root of it, and you're like, oh, and that can be everything from attachment styles to, you know, Myers-Briggs to the one I want to say is my human design, like really understanding. I'll give you an example. In My Human Design, they have these 4 different archetypes, much like a horoscope or any other of the assessments. Hey, Ladybug. There's a Ladybug coming towards me. It's going to attack. What if that happens? Anyway, there's my profile is a generator. And one of the things they talk about with generators is that we have to be careful about why we choose to do certain things in our vocations. They say when you were a child, and this kind of alludes to something I said earlier, is like if you were patted on the back when you did something that your parents like, and for me, I remember specifically, my mom was a teacher, and I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 10 years old. And like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be like, a scientist. And I could hear her on the phone telling her friends like, yeah, he said he wants to be a scientist. And like she was, I knew that made her feel good.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I don't know. So here I am as an adult. Somebody's like, hey, Chris, I really like when you do this. Will you come do this for us? And you're like, yeah. Next thing I know, I'm working a job for 2, 3, 5 years that I kind of have no passion for. I was attracted to the flattery and not the task at hand. Now, in hindsight, all those experiences obviously were drops in the bucket of who I became as a human being and as in the innovation economy. But it was recognizing that, all right, my next decisions are not going to come from this place of flattery. I have to recognize what is a true thing that fires me up, and drawing a hard line to say no, despite whatever circumstance I might be in or what the opportunity might look like.
There are a lot of layers to what you just shared there, and going back to before the try, talking about the relationship to these skills of sales skills, basically, right? Or spending a bit of time, getting an engineering degree and doing some work with that. How do you feel about putting skills away when you're no longer needing them in this moment? Or do you find that the usefulness of skills evolve as the context where they can be applied changes?
I think both answers, both like phrasings and directions are right. I think there are certain things where there's certain things I miss. I just miss it, right? Like, I'm a great writer, and I was lucky enough to work on a TV show last year, but that was my first paid writing job in a dozen years,
Yeah.
And like writing and entertainment was something that was like incredibly close to me. I did stand-up comedy for 7 years, and my moving to LA was to become a writer. And I had so much identity and purpose, especially when you tell a bunch of people in the Midwest that you're moving across the country to become XYZ, and you've got a crowd of people that are like, are you doing it?
Right. They're all your mom on the phone.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Did you do it? And then either by the winds of change where, a show doesn't get picked up a second season, or the movie never gets sold or whatever, and you're like, I got to make some money if I want to stay out here. And then for me, that became like a marketing project here and there, a production project here and there. And, you start to enter this phase of identity crisis.
Right.
Like, and then, no disrespect to my mom in any way. It's like, I remember talking to her in those early days when I first moved here. She's like, well, you always got that engineering degree. You can go back. I was like, in my 22, 23-year-old brain, I was like, I just moved away. Like, do you hear me? Do you see my actions? Right? Now I'm feeling unseen, unheard, unvalued for my vision by my mom, who, bless her heart, is only trying to like suggest things to keep me safe in a way that she knows best. And that created a lot of angst for me. Like, it created hesitation in me, like reaching out to her, because I'm like, I know she's going to suggest something that I don't identify with.
Yeah.
And so these skills that you end up like learning and putting away, then it just becomes like, how do they transfer? And I think that's what I, work with a lot of my clients. Is like, I used to do this, now I want to do that. And it can be vastly different.
Right.
And you're like, all right, what are the dots of connection? What are, when I interview, it's like if I interview a drummer who's now like a technologist of some sort, I'm like, what are the similarities between drum and like what you're building? Oh, actually there's a rhythm to this, that, and the third, or, a stick might break and you got to keep right on beat and go grab another one. And like, so we start to, so resiliency, like the ability to pivot on a moment's notice. The ability to like, what's the rhythm that is going to get us to so it's the ability to learn what skills are recognizable, and then allowing yourself to just miss and grieve some of the things.
Yeah.
Because I still there's still things I used to do where I'm like, do I miss it or do I want to do it? Right? Like there's two different things. There's an ex-girlfriend out there somewhere where you're like, she sure was great.
But it's done.
Yeah, you're like, and you're like, thanks to Facebook and Instagram, you can creep, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone. You know what I mean? Like and you start to, we all have like some form of nostalgic wanderlust around what was.
Yeah.
You know, unless it was extremely traumatic, right? And that even takes some undoing, because you can have trauma from a thing that you loved doing.
Yeah.
Right, like, and that's a little bit of a mindfuck. Is that fair? You know, you start the questions we start to ask ourselves, and then now we have to make the next choice of what we're gonna do. Is like, well, I got it wrong that time. Well, did you? Like, you know, so it's just this constant reframing, recalibration, and getting comfortable with having those paradoxical conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
And especially in a society, it's like, what are you doing now? Right, like,
right. What are you doing?
Oh, what are you gonna do? I have a friend that's moving out of her place, and you know, in part because of some financial reasons, and you know, kind of is like leaning into it in a way that's like, I don't know what this adventure is gonna bring.
Yeah.
But the dozen people that she spoke to are asking these very like strict questions. What are you gonna do next? Do you need blah, blah? Here's what I would do. You know, it's just like, I didn't ask you that. Like,
well, the do of it makes our identity so intertwined with our skills.
1000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you rest upon?
Trust. I don't. Yeah, you know, I'll speak for myself, but I think we're all every day just making our next best guess. Right? And we want to be like, and especially if you're in some position of it, like me as a personal advisor, right? I don't have all the answers. I know some methods to think through things.
Yeah.
And so I think resting in trust goes like, it'll work out. You know, somebody said a long time ago, it's like the universe is like a GPS system. It's like even when you make a wrong turn, it'll course correct to get you to where you need to go. And, you know, I try to lean more and more into that every day. So even when you ask me what's in front of me, it's like I don't fully know, right? Like, and part of the trust is like I'm gonna land pretty well and on my feet, and probably in some ways that I did not imagine, like prior to the moment happening.
So that gives me a question I don't have the answer to. Maybe you do.
Uh-oh.
What's the difference between trust and faith?
Not much.
Yeah.
Again, vocabulary, right?
First
a lot
off,
of people equate faith with some form of religious or spiritual, you know, reliance. And I think, that's a great. I mean, it's a great question. You know, I was designing this workshop with a yoga studio last year, and I was equating some of the yoga poses to moments within the innovator's journey. Sometimes you have to be a warrior, right? Sometimes you have to stay in a position a lot longer than you think you can hold on to. When I got into Happy Baby, I was thinking about the concept of trust. And when we are babies, we trusted so much that we didn't even know that the word or concept of trust existed. You cried, food showed up.
Wow.
You know, you got picked up. And I don't care how terrible your childhood was. If you're an adult, you made it. Right? Whatever you did not know how to do. And I want to return to that much of a deep level of trust where it's like, I'm just doing whatever I like, it's coming up for me. And that need or that desire will be taken care of.
I love the space you opened for that answer. To not even know what trust is, but still have something deeper.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where faith resides.
Yeah, there's a lot of like texts that talk about, you know, how words actually get in the way of experience, like emotional experience. One of my favorite books is A Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And it's, you know, it's probably 200 some odd pages, and this author has just made up words for experiences that we all have that don't have words for them.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun read, and it's like, it's deep, it's emotional, it's funny, like, and you're like, oh, I know that thing. I know that feeling of what it's like, and you're right, there is no way to describe it. And trust can be one of those things. Faith is extremely similar. So no, I appreciate the question. That's great.
Spoken a couple of times on a theme around, you mentioned somatics. You're talking about the asanas and yoga poses and the wisdom that they hold. This direction here, what do you rest upon? It's like the soil of your life. It's your body. It's the ground. It's just kind of that material reality. This is an area that I'll admit is exciting for me because it's what I'm learning right now. My wife is dragging me by the ear into somatic work and yoga classes. The space that we met in professionally is quite cerebral, right? Kind of like prognosticating about the future. Tell me more about what you've come to know about thinking with the body. Or feeling with the body is maybe a better phrase.
Yeah. So there was a period of time where my left knee was just killing me. I mean, look at me. I'm in great shape.
I can see that.
And I was like, what is going on? And I couldn't get out of the car without leaning and supporting my knee. Going upstairs was hard. Sleeping was uncomfortable. And I went to, the doctor, got a scan on it. They didn't see any inflammation. I went to 11 weeks of physical therapy. I was putting CBD cream on it and going to hot yoga and just whatever I could do to alleviate whatever I was feeling. Finally, I literally threw my hands up in the air and I grabbed my phone and I Googled metaphysical definition of knee pain because I had tried everything else. I was like, maybe there's something else. And what it said was physiologically, when we walk, the first thing that moves in any direction is our knee.
Oh.
And if the direction that you're headed in is out of alignment with where you're supposed to be and where you want or where you want to be, then inflammation can occur. And then it goes on and break down the left side being the feminine, right side being the masculine.
Yep.
And that entire time I was struggling with the important decision about my relationship.
Wow.
And I hadn't spoken to anybody about it. I hadn't, I'd talked to no therapist, nobody. And I was like, oh.
Your knee knew.
Right. Sounds like a nickname for a grandmother. Hey, Ninu. And then it just started my path. I was like, oh, there must be more to this. And I had the book, The Body Keeps the Score, all these other things. And even with my clients I work with, I don't know, I had one client who got his dream job. Very high functioning, incredibly smart, whole thing. Got his dream job at a company we all know and love. Left a really well-paying job to do that. Got laid off unexpectedly 5 months later. And was pissed. And it was like a lawsuit, just all the things. And we worked through some of it. And at one point he had to have septum surgery. And I was like, hold on. I looked up septum. Not being recognized at work. Right. And and I'm not saying don't go to the doctor, right? I'm not beating that drum. But if you can get other information for ailments and things that you feel in your body, the subtle ones, even silly things like stubbing your toe. You think that is coincidental, and sometimes it is. So, I also believe in this phrase, nothing has meaning except the meaning we give it.
Right.
But if you want to just investigate and be curious and see how many different angles can I look at this occurrence through, I dropped a weight on my toe at the beginning of 1 year, and I was like, it was really random because I was working out and I was pulling the plates off the dumbbell bar. And there was a little 5-pound plate, and it fell directly on my big toe, 90 degree or whatever, right angle.
Oh.
And when I was just like, let me just see, and I forgot exactly what it meant, but at that point in time, it was like, yep, that is going on.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's information in that. And, we store a lot of things. I have a client who has a chronic illness. And in part because of it, it's hard for her to tune into her intuition because her body has kind of let her down. Right. In her processing phase of this. Sure. And it's your intuition about oh, I should do this at work, or maybe we should do this project or whatever. I think this person has an issue, whatever your hunches are, you start to second guess. We all second guess for whatever different reasons, and that's the individuality of the practice. It's you know, what may come up for you in a work environment may be completely different for person B in the same set of conditions.
Well, this is rich, because the next question, I'm going to lead the witness on this a little bit. So it's, what do you receive? And
Objection, leading the witness.
It's about, I'm just going to ignore.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, maybe that's relevant too, because the direction is about how do you determine signal versus noise, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of what I'm hearing here, is how do you find your intuition when your body's screaming at you, and maybe your body is screaming the signal at you, or maybe it's the noise, right? There's a lot in this in terms of like determining what is something that occurs that's of massive meaning, or something that the only meaning is the meaning that you give it. How does Chris Denson navigate what is signal versus what is noise?
Thankfully, I'm a parent of a girl. And, you know, who has ADHD and anxiety, like all the things of today. And I remember reading something once, and it was like, you know, there's a subtle difference between anxiety and intuition. Like, your anxiety will tell you there's danger around every corner. Intuition might be like, don't go around that corner, right? What's the difference? And that particular text said intuition is usually a lot quieter. It's, you know, the loud thing is going to be, you know, look over here, there's something to be afraid of. Intuition is going to be like, maybe just don't go today. You're like, I don't know why. You almost don't have a logical definition, you know, logical means of interpreting it. And I think all these things I'm talking about, for some people, take a lot of practice. A lot of practice of, okay, this is going to get, you wrote a book on mysticism. I took a class on psychic abilities.
Yeah.
And one of the exercises we had to do was, she showed us like a birth chart, and we had to guess who it was.
Oh, backwards, cool.
Right? And you're like, yeah, it's a celebrity, blah, blah, and everybody had to guess. And the practice was not in getting it right or wrong, but like, what parts of it did you get right?
Right, it's learning the inquiry.
Yes, so it's learning to be curious enough of whether it's a big anxiety, you know, or a small like nudge.
Fascinating. What a great teacher.
Like, how can I just keep asking questions and testing my own, despite the frustration and angst and real life turmoil we all go through. Just like, can I reserve a portion of my existence to just continue to be curious and turn the dials?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it worked that time, not that time. And that's what I think the other part that becomes frustrating is like, it's not linear. You know, it's 3 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Right.
2 steps forward, another step back. 10 steps forward, 1 step back. Okay, cool. Right? But it takes repeat impression, much like anything else you want to learn how to do. You know?
Well, having a Post-it note in front of you that says, what am I learning?
Oh, absolutely.
Certainly helps.
You know, my little cheat code is that I have a bunch of, like, I have a 6-foot whiteboard where I work from, and I'll write things to the reminders on me. 90% of the time, it may come up as something relevant that's in the conversation I'm having. Currently, in the middle of it says, I embrace all the possibilities I never knew existed. Because I was like, you know, there was a couple of things I was like, I have no clue how this situation is going to change.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've done all the things that I know how to do. But I also welcome anything that's like not on my radar at all. And I have to, like, if I'm telling other people to be open to those types of...
You have to be open too.
Yeah. And, you know, there's no... And that's the beauty of it is, like, there's no completing the game, you know?
Okay, well, so there's a lot of insight that you just shared. At the end there, some people might be surprised that a way to discern signal from noise is actually being open more than being closed.
Yeah, I think you gotta, look, I mean, if you have a clinical diagnosis, I'm not saying like ignore whatever protocols you need to take. Right?
Of course.
Right. I am saying like having a spirit, and this goes back into like more tactical innovation, is having a spirit of experimentation and learning. Mm-hmm. You know, I think most of us want to get it right and move on to the next thing, right? In some way, shape, or form. And I like in this, it's like, let me experiment. I mean, the number of modalities I tried in my own experience to you know, my knee as an example, or try to change this, or change my vocation, or the number of different ways I tried, different meditation techniques, different journaling techniques, different books I've read. Some are like, I don't understand this is too heady. Then I read one that's like, I don't know, my son's here, and like we would read at night, The Alchemist. That was our nighttime reading.
Yeah, beautiful.
I would read Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Then I would read, or books that I read 15 years ago. I go, let me just pick this back up. And now it hits different because that was my form of experimentation. Oh, that felt good. That felt weird.
Do you prefer instructions or stories?
Stories, probably, if I had to choose.
Okay.
Stories, I think you get to extract more of what resonates with you.
Yeah.
Instructions are like, they're easier to question. And this is coming from a guy who wrote 10 Essential Rules for Breaking Essential Rules, right? Like, it's like, oh, yeah, I agree with steps 1 through 5, but 6 and 7 don't quite make sense to me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to try to do it this way.
Yeah.
And I think that's how every sort of incremental innovation happens. Like, I'm just going to, I hear you, let me just try it real quick. Let me see if it didn't work. All right, we'll do it your way. Or like, see, I told you, right? And it's having, again, the fear of experimentation goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like if I get it wrong enough times, catastrophe.
So with that in mind, I mean, when is it not time to innovate, if ever?
I don't think there's not a time.
Love it.
I don't. That's my like a knee-jerk reaction to it. Because I think, again, if I'm looking at it as an operating system, there are always buttons. I can, when I launched Visionology, I have one advisor for that business. And he was like, from a sales perspective, it's probably like 100 to 1, your conversion rate. And I was like, and I've been sending out email blasts, whatever, a couple thousand people. And I was like, what happens if I email a bunch of people individually? And I spent a week, probably 150 emails, whatever. And the conversion rate of going one-to-one personalized, like, hey, Will, how's it going? How's the baby doing? You good? Blah, blah, blah. Forgive the cut and paste, but here's something I've been working on. I think it might be good for you. If you're interested, let me know. I would love to catch up anyway. As opposed to, and I'm not saying email blast, don't worry. Nothing I'm doing is to negate any other ways of operating. But that was my little experiment. I was like, let me see. There's going to be a little bit more effort for me. I'm in the red at this point in time,
Yeah.
and I have a sense of urgency, and I'd much rather move on to something else, or changing the phrasing in something, or changing the font in a deck. And I think, especially if you're an entrepreneur, I find a lot of entrepreneurs, they have the big V vision of what they want to create, and then there's the starter version. The starter version never looks as grand as the big V version. And so a lot of people fail to just start because until all these other pieces are in place, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And I'll go start where you are.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to, and I encourage so many people and go look at the Airbnb's first pitch deck. Go look at the first pitch deck for Uber or Amazon. Mm-hmm. Look at how ugly and shitty that they were, and typos abound. No design whatsoever. And the company that you know today that you're emulating had extremely humble beginnings.
Yeah.
And so there's that kind of experimentation. Let me just start with this little piece and this little tweak. And so, yeah, innovation is always on.
Always on. Step into the light.
Yeah.
What shines on you?
What shines on me? I know you sent all these questions ahead of time, and they were equally as hard to answer. The answer just came to me is humor.
Okay.
I can find levity in a lot of things. My dear old brother passed last year. Mm-hmm. And I entered that, not in a way that was masking or, in any way unhealthy, but like a pretty good sense of humor about it. And I shed my tears, I wrote my letters, I did all my like practices. I have, an altar with this photo on it, like I, did all those things. But because of all this work that I've done, a lot of things don't carry as much weight and or for as long. And I can quickly get to a place of reasoning and or comfort in discomfort. And so, and I think part of that is due to my sense of humor, right? And I can find joy in a moment where others don't see it.
It certainly seems like it's part of your operating system.
It is almost to like, in some cases almost to, again, with these shifts that are happening. And, there's at home Chris Denson where I'm like, haha, I'm going to say something really obscure and really foul and offensive to, a friend.
That's not this Chris Denson? That's
well, no, he's here.
Okay.
He's here. He's just really quiet. And I've trust me, I've said some things that are like off the cuff, but I think to disarm a situation and help somebody see that it's not as bad as it might feel.
That's powerful.
It is. And like, I feel like it is a gift that I've been given to, have people feel comfortable. I have so many clients who will say something that are like, let's say, different socio-political views than I might have. And I'm always, not in the egotistical way, I'm kind of in awe at how I'm able to hold space in those moments.
Yeah.
And I go like, oh, that, and part of me goes, that's a surprising response or reference from this person that I've, been working this intimately with. But I remember years ago when I first moved here, I was a personal trainer at Bally's Total Fitness. That's how long ago it was. And when you're a personal trainer, sometimes when people buy a membership, they get a batch of sessions for free and then you work with them. And I was working with this one guy and you have to ask them all their medical history questions and fill out forms and so on and so forth. And this one dude kind of had a distended belly. He was a little older. And I was, are you on any medications? Oh, I'm on this AIDS medication. I was like, okay, cool. And then I asked him like whatever follow-up question and he goes, wow. He's like, normally when I tell people that, they like freeze and like shut down. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say because it was such second nature for me to go like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to get AIDS. Just kidding. See, I told you, he's here. But the fact that we did our 5 sessions, we had a great time. We and so I think I've always just been able to kind of like pause. And there's certain things, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of things I am working on and through. And when my shadows or my challenges show up, I'm very much well aware of them. And so, it's a constant like monitoring. And again, another metaphor I like to use is like when you first start monitoring your thoughts and like, how am I thinking, feeling, being, et cetera, it can be really taxing and overwhelming to realize like, is this what I do all day? Right? Is this what my brain and body are doing all day? And then I go like, eventually that energy shifts when it starts to become second nature and you just see it, you're like, oh, there's one. And I say, it's almost like catching butterflies with a butterfly net. It's like, oh, there's a thought that I don't need. And then you like gently catch it and you like let it out of the window, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like, oh my gosh, again, with the thinking, right?
The humor here, there's a couple sides to it, the way that you've shared it. It sounds to me like it's a path to the medicine for you in terms of a way to grief, right? Like that the humor in it can be a path, not as a mask, but actually quite the opposite of like it helps you hold on to something to get to the more challenging places. Yeah. And then on the other side, it's also something that you use to help the medicine that you offer go down. Yeah. That you can bridge to other people and offer. You're either on the receiving end of truth or the giving end of truth. And the humor has a role to play on both sides of the equation there. Yeah,
I think so. And I think also, when we have these native energies or native, ways of being, we sometimes go through periods of life where we don't think like that part of us belongs in the room.
That's right? A big one.
And So when I was going back and forth between sort of jobby job and comedy stuff, I was like, I couldn't be too businessy in the comedy parts of things, and then I couldn't be too silly in the businessy parts of things. And I remember in, working at OMD specifically, like starting to like not be as afraid to like let my sort of truer sense of humor out. And I will say in most cases it led us to some of our best thinking.
Yeah.
Because whether it's me wordplay or a pun or something crass, and then you go like, actually hold on, that was funny, but what if we did do it this way, right? Like, and that is how my imagination works. The scenarios I make up, the dialogue, the characters, the saying the wrong thing on purpose just to see like, yeah. To watch you not laugh, because you not laughing is actually funnier to me than you like being angry.
It's like telling a joke as echolocation.
Yeah, yeah. I was at an event.
See what bounces back.
I tell people all the time, like I'll be at a place and I will see the humor in something. And I was at a very important event recently, and I won't say what it was, but I was like, there were so many things that were like subtle things that were going wrong or just like really obscure, and I was thinking it was crazy. And I'm looking around the room. It's probably like 500 people in this room, and I was like, I should probably leave because I feel like my face is very telling. And so. And I was like, I wish I had a funny buddy here. Somebody who like sees the world the same way I do.
Yeah.
And I was out in the parking lot, and somebody came out who I'd had 1 or 2 meetings with a month or so before, and I did the echolocation thing. I said one little thing that couldn't be misconstrued as being like foul or offensive or whatever. And that person chuckled, and I was like, this is my person. And for the next 30 minutes, we were able to talk about all the things that we saw. Now, again, if I had to take that and make that serious, it would just be improvements on the event.
Yeah.
That's really what it would have, like, that's all. The sound didn't, they should have checked the sound before the performer went up. Oh, who didn't check the video? Why is this person walking across the room at a very slow pace, distracting everybody? Just all of these different things, which to me are funny, both on just a comedy level, but also like, this could have been better, in some ways.
Well, it's a recognition of context.
Yeah.
I think, in a way.
Yeah, I think comics are like observers of culture anyway, right? And I think as a marketer, since I spent so much time in the marketing ecosystem, it's like I have to look at things and translate them into unique presentations.
Yeah. Well,
dating and Tinder. Okay, I'll stop talking.
So then, no, I need you to keep talking. So in the what you give direction,
yeah,
comedy, telling a joke, being a marketer, pitching, dating. How do you know when to shoot your shot?
I am chronically a purveyor. Like the gift and the curse of being me is that done is better than perfect. Like, sometimes I look at the first iteration of my Visionology deck that I designed myself with no use of Canva or anything else.
It's a beautiful deck, by the way. The one that I've seen.
The one that you've seen.
Yeah.
The one that I sent out before, I was like, it'll be fine. Like, part of it was just like, I'm going to have conversation about it anyway. I'm not going to just send it over and be like.
Response was, please do not email me again.
Exactly. And and I try to encourage this, just, again, from an innovation perspective. It's like, done is better than perfect. Like, there's always a change to be made to something. There's always another approach to consider. There's always, a path you could wait on. And I think shooting the shot just comes like, is this my minimum viable product for how I want to move forward with this particular thing? Is it the big V vision of what no, absolutely not. Until I could hire a designer, that's the deck that you got. So it took a little bit of like market entry pricing and a shitty deck and some conversations to get a handful of clients. And then I took that money. I was like, hey, person, can you design a better version of this for me? Right. And I had to I knew what risk I was taking. I didn't even like the deck. I liked I'm a great writer. So I liked the text that was on the page. The text has not changed. So yeah, And I think sometimes that's despite yourself, despite your own inclination, your fear and or your intuition telling you maybe not yet.
Well, some important humility in there, knowing what your lane of genius is and what you need to outsource to others.
Yes, like I'm good at speaking about certain things and I'm good at writing certain things. I am not a designer. You know, I don't always have the right words, right? You know, I did a podcast a few days ago, and I was like, what are you saying? Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what is coming out of your mouth right now?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure it like is absolutely fine. That was my inner critic going like, oh, you've done better than this before, right? But we shipped it, right? And there was another podcast. We just won like the host won 2 Pop Short Awards for the episode that we recorded. I didn't think that was my best work. I just like
sometimes you don't know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't know, and that thing again. We're all just taking our best guess and our best step forward at any given time. Some of those steps are, you know, Jordan from the foul line. Some of those are like a toddler trying to figure out what are these things called legs, right? Like,
Right.
And both are okay and both are necessary.
What's in your heart?
Self-love, presence, and compassion. Self-love is relatively new, like in the last 3 years. It's something I really like decided deliberately to investigate what it feels like and
Wow.
what is it. To the point of like, you know, a rescue dog getting a hug from a kind owner.
Wow.
You're like, you've been beating yourself up in my case, right? Like we beat ourselves up over whatever. And then you go like, you know what, I'm gonna give myself a hug. And it sounds, it's very Stuart Smiley. Remember that sketch from Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, you gotta look in the mirror.
Yeah.
You're good enough, you're smart enough.
And doggone it, people like you, right? And it's like, and that's how, and there's so many things I had like a lot of stigma and things around in terms of practices. And again, I have to tweak some of these things so that they resonate with me and for me. And that was one of those. It's like, all right. And I'd even asked a couple, it was like, do you love yourself? You know, people that were close to me. And I was like, what does that feel like?
Yeah.
And they tried to describe it and I was like, okay. And I think that practice just started to allow me to show up a little bit differently. Like, you know, in a conversation, now I'm thinking less about what I'm going to say and I'm just dialed in. I sometimes I'll go into client sessions and I'm like, there's part of me that wants to serve them up the best of Chris Denson and like help them along the way. And there's part of me that's like, I don't know where the fuck this conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, I'm like, look where we landed, right? Like, oh my gosh, like I stuck the landing and we stuck the landing and who knew, right?
It's like a pilot lands the plane and they're like, we did it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it feels like. It's like turbulence and you know, the person on the other side of the conversation doesn't see it in me. I'm just like, just like blank stare, like, well. I was like, you know, I have to, and then I just take again, my best next guess. Hey, I heard you say this. Like, does this resonate? Actually, it does. Okay, cool. Now we're in a different lane. In a lane where I'm like, I can build from here. And that's within 60 minutes. Sometimes we're at minute 40, and I'm like, I don't know which homework assignment I'm gonna get. What to offer the internet. But then at some point, it just turns around. And that, I think, going back to the idea of trust is hard because we want to have evidence that our trust and our faith is worth it.
Wow.
So it's like, did it result in what I said it should? And you also have to look at like the inadvertent results that you've created.
Right.
You're like, I didn't plan on that. And if I don't remain open to all the possibilities, I might miss the gold or the lesson.
It was something different. The trust resulted in action.
Yes, and trust says like you're going to get what you need. It might not be exactly what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you might get exactly what you asked for. And you're like, oh, either you love it or you're like, it's like Tony Robbins when he did his TED Talk, he asked the audience, like, how many of you like surprises? And everybody's like, woo! And he goes, bullshit, you like the surprises you like.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I didn't, you're right. So.
Wow. My next best guest, Chris Denson. Anything else you want to add?
No, I don't know. What would you like me to add? Do you want me to little seasoned salt, little Lowry's,
Yeah, just a little hours.
little red hot, little Lowry's and red hot? No, I think this. Hey, you're great. I don't know. Like I think this is. I like having these conversations. I like that we experimented being outdoors.
Yeah. It's been a great day at the park with you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing yourself.
Yeah.